The sky over Lagos was turning a brilliant shade of orange as the sun began to dip below the horizon. Adana stood by the large glass window of her beach house, watching the waves crash against the shore. It had been weeks since the chaos at her wedding, weeks since Kelechi and Amara had turned her world upside down. And yet, here she was, alone, unsure, and with more questions than ever. Her fingers absent-mindedly tapped against the glass as her mind drifted back to Amara's cryptic message. The truth will set you free, but you'll have to face the past first. Those words haunted her every waking moment. What truth? What was she supposed to do with this knowledge that had come crashing into her life? The phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her from her thoughts. She didn't recognize the number but answered it anyway. Adana, came Cynthia's voice, calm but insistent. We need to talk. This has gone on long enough. You can't keep running away from this. Adana sighed, her eyes still fixed on the horizon. I'm not running, Cynthia. I'm just trying to figure things out. I know. But that's the problem, Cynthia continued. You're running from the truth, and it's only going to get harder the longer you ignore it. Kelechi and Amara, they want you involved in something bigger. Don't let them pull you into their plans. Her heart skipped a beat. What plans? Before Adana could respond, there was a knock at the door. The sound was sudden, sharp, and it made her jump. She looked at her phone, then back at the door. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Cautiously, she walked toward the door, her breath quickening. When she opened it, her pulse surged. There stood Teayo, her childhood friend. His face was tense, a look she hadn't seen on him in years. What are you doing here? She asked, though she already had an inkling of why he was here. Teayo hesitated, his eyes flickering to the side before meeting hers. I think we need to talk. It's about everything, Kelechi, Emma, your family. You're in danger, Adana. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She stepped back, allowing him to enter. As he did, her mind raced. Danger? How could she be in danger now, after everything that had happened? Sit down, she said, leading him to the living room. What's going on? Teayo sank into the chair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I've been investigating everything, Adana. Everything about Emma, Kelechi, your father, everything. And there's something you don't know. Something big. Her heart thudded in her chest. What are you talking about? Teayo took a deep breath before speaking. You think Emma betrayed you, right? But what if I told you that he was hiding something far worse? What if I told you that you've been part of something much bigger? Something that involves not just Emma, but your father too. Adana's breath hitched. My father? What do you mean? Teayo's gaze hardened. Your father was involved in some very shady dealings, Adana. Things that no one ever told you about. Emma knew about them, and he used those secrets to secure your engagement. The shock hit her in waves. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. Her father? Her mind reeled as she tried to process what Teayo was saying. You're lying, she whispered, her voice cracking. I wish I were, Teayo replied. But you need to understand something. Kelechi and Amara, they didn't just show up at your wedding because they wanted to ruin things. They showed up because they want to bring down Emma. And you're the key to it. Adana's mind spun as she absorbed Teayo's words. The key? How was she the key to anything? But deep down, she felt the weight of truth starting to settle in. It made sense. Everything that had happened so far, the betrayal, the secrets, was connected in a way she hadn't yet understood. She slowly sank onto the couch, her head heavy with the truth. What do I do now? Teayo's expression softened. You have to decide what you want to do, Adana. You can't ignore this any longer. But you need to know that Kelechi and Amara, they're not just trying to destroy Emma. They want you to help them. The morning came too quickly for Adana. She barely slept the night before, her mind racing with everything Teayo had told her. How could she have been so blind? Her father's secrets, Emma's betrayal, and Kelechi's involvement. They were all tied together. And now, her only option was to confront the past. Adana sat in her living room, the blinds drawn tight against the daylight. The silence of the house pressed in on her, heavy and suffocating. Her phone buzzed again, This time it was an unfamiliar number. Taking a deep breath, she answered. Adana, we need to talk. Amara's voice came through the phone, smooth as ever but cold. I know you're confused, but you have to understand what we're doing is necessary. We can't let Emma get away with this. Adana closed her eyes, trying to steady her nerves. What do you want from me, Amara? I want you to face the truth, Amara replied. There's so much you don't know, but you need to understand that you're part of something bigger now. Kelechi and we're not just trying to ruin Emma's life. We're trying to take him down once and for all. But we can't do it without you. The words hit her like a slap. Part of something bigger? She was already entangled in a mess she couldn't untangle. She had tried to walk away, but the truth had already found her, pulling her deeper into the web of lies. Why me? Adana asked, her voice shaking. Why did you involve me in all of this? Amara's answer was simple. Because you're stronger than you think. You've been part of this plan from the beginning. Your father's secrets, Emma's manipulations, they've all been leading up to this moment. And now it's your turn to take control. The words echoed in Adana's mind long after the call ended. Take control. But how? How could she ever trust herself again, knowing how much of her life had been orchestrated by others? And yet, deep down, a part of her knew that this was the only way forward. The next few days were a blur for Adana. Each morning, she would wake up, lost in the whirlwind of confusion and uncertainty. Kelechi and Amara were constantly on her mind, their cryptic messages haunting her thoughts. And the idea that her father had been involved in something so dark, something that tied her to this dangerous game, was almost too much to bear. Yet, she knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. There was too much at stake now, too many lives involved. If Emma's past was as sinister as Teayo had hinted, then Adana's world was far more complicated than she could have imagined. She had trusted Emma, believed in him, and now the man she was set to marry was entangled in secrets that could destroy everything she had built. The knock on her door startled her out of her thoughts. She hadn't been expecting anyone, but when she opened it, there stood Kelechi. He looked different, colder, more determined. Gone was the warm, passionate man she remembered from their past. In his place stood a man driven by a purpose she couldn't yet understand. Adana, he said softly, though his eyes were hard, his tone serious. We need to talk. Adana crossed her arms defensively. What do you want, Kelechi? You've already said everything there is to say. He stepped inside, glancing around the room as if making sure no one was watching. It's not what you think, he began, voice low. I didn't come here to complicate things, Adana. I came here because there's something you need to know. Something about Emma. Something I should have told you earlier. Her pulse quickened. What about Emma? Kelechi hesitated before speaking. Emma's involvement with your father, his role in the money laundering scheme, it's bigger than you think. Your father wasn't just involved in a few shady deals. He was one of the major players in a criminal network that spanned the entire country. And Emma? He was working with him the whole time. Adana staggered back, the words hitting her like a punch to the gut. She couldn't process what he was saying, couldn't believe it. Her father? A criminal mastermind? It felt like the ground was slipping beneath her feet. You're lying, she whispered, barely able to speak. My father would never. No, Adana, Kelechi interrupted gently. I wish I were, but I've seen the evidence. I've been following the money trail for months. Your father and Emma. They've been working together for years, and they've been using you as a pawn in their game. The world felt like it was crumbling around her. Everything she had believed in, everything she had worked for was now called into question. She thought about Emma's smooth words, the charm that had captivated her. How had she been so blind? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Adana demanded, tears welling in her eyes. Why did you wait until now? Kelechi stepped closer, his voice softer. Because I wanted you to be safe. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. But now it's too late. You're already caught in the middle of it. Adana's thoughts swirled in a dizzying storm. What now? What was she supposed to do with this knowledge? You need to leave him, Adana, Kelechi said firmly. Emma will stop at nothing to get what he wants. But you don't have to be part of this anymore. Adana felt a sudden surge of anger rise within her. She didn't want to be told what to do. She didn't want to run away to hide. She had worked so hard to build a life. This life. And now it was all being threatened by the very man she was supposed to marry. I'm not going anywhere, she snapped, her voice shaking. I will decide what happens to my life. I'm not your pawn anymore, Kelechi. Kelechi's face softened, and for a moment, Adana saw the man she had once loved. But she couldn't afford to let that cloud her judgment. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about survival. You're not a pawn, he said quietly. But if you stay with him, you'll never be free. Adana stood still, the weight of his words pressing down on her. Could she really walk away from Emma? Could she face the truth of what her life had become? Adana didn't sleep that night. The hours passed in a blur as her mind replayed the events over and over again. Kelechi's words echoed in her head, reminding her of how deep the deception went. She couldn't let herself be manipulated anymore. Not by Emma, not by anyone. She had to take control of her own fate. The next day, she decided to confront Emma. She couldn't live in the shadows of his lies any longer. She needed answers, and she needed them now. When she arrived at his mansion, she found him in his study going over papers. His sharp eyes immediately met hers as she entered, his expression unreadable. Adana, he said smoothly, setting the papers aside. I didn't expect you so early. What's on your mind? She stood firm, her heart racing but her resolve unshakable. I know what you've been hiding, Emma. I know about you and my father, about the criminal network you've been a part of. I know everything. For the first time, a flicker of surprise passed over his face, but it was quickly replaced by a calm, almost bored expression. You're upset. I understand. But you don't know the full story, Adana. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you lie to me? She demanded, her voice rising. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Emma leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled as he studied her. Because you wouldn't have believed me. You wouldn't have understood why I did what I did. And more importantly, you wouldn't have been able to handle it. Adana's blood boiled. You think I can't handle the truth? No, Adana, Emma said quietly. I think you'll never be able to handle the consequences of knowing everything. Her chest tightened, the implications of his words sinking in. Consequences? What could he mean by that? Emma stood, walking toward her with slow, deliberate steps. The truth is, your father was never the man you thought he was. And neither am I. But we both wanted the same thing: power, control. And you, Adana, were always meant to be part of that plan. Adana's breath caught in her throat as the weight of his words hit her. This was it. She had reached the moment where everything would either shatter or come together. The walls of the mansion felt like they were closing in on Adana. Every step she took away from Emma's study felt like a step further into the unknown. Her mind raced as she tried to process everything she had just learned. The lies, the manipulation, nothing about her life had been real. She had been living in a carefully constructed illusion, and now that illusion was crumbling around her. Kelechi's face flashed in her mind, and the pain of their past still stung. But as much as she had loved him once, he wasn't the one who had betrayed her. Emma had. And now it was time to decide her future. She stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her wasn't the same person she had been when she first entered this house. She was stronger now, more aware of the darkness that surrounded her. Adana's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She opened it to find Kelechi standing there, his expression somber. Are you ready? He asked softly. Adana nodded, her heart heavy. It's time to end this. I'm done being part of their game. Together, they walked into the storm of lies and betrayal that awaited them. The final confrontation loomed, and the stakes had never been higher. Would Adana walk away with her dignity intact, or would she become another victim of Emma's web? With Kelechi by her side, she prepared to take down the man who had lied to her from the beginning. But in this game of shadows, only one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The ocean waves whispered secrets as Adana stood on the edge of the shore, her bare feet digging into the cold, wet sand. The wind tugged at her hair and the white robe she wore over her tank top, but her mind was too far gone to notice. Every day since she walked away from the disaster of a wedding, she had been searching for herself, for the truth, for a new beginning. But the past didn't stay buried for long. Cynthia appeared behind her, carrying 2 cups of hot tea. "You're freezing," she said, offering 1 cup. Adana took it without a word. They stood in silence, watching the waves. Cynthia finally broke it. "Still no word from Amara?" Adana shook her head. "No, just that one cryptic message. The truth set you free. Now it's time to find out who you really are." Cynthia sighed. "She's playing games. You should block her." But Adana knew better. Amara wasn't finished. And neither was this story. Just then, Adana's phone buzzed. Another message. No name, no photo, just a location pin and a single line of text. "You're not the only one he lied to." Adana's heart skipped a beat. "We're going," she said. The building was old, buried in the outskirts of Lagos, run down, forgotten. Cynthia hesitated as Adana walked up to the door and knocked twice. Nothing. She raised her hand to knock again when the door creaked open slowly. An older woman with kind eyes stepped out. "You're Adana?" she asked. Adana nodded slowly. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer right away. She stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. Inside, photos lined the walls. Photos of a woman who looked eerily like Amara. In some of the pictures, she was younger, smiling, standing beside someone Adana recognized instantly. "Chief Emma. This is her," Adana whispered. The woman finally spoke. "I'm Amaka, Emma's older sister." Adana's knees buckled slightly, and Cynthia grabbed her. Amaka gestured to the photo. "That was my brother's wife, his first. Her name was Nena. They were in love once. But love didn't survive Emma's hunger for power. When Nena discovered what he was doing, what he was really doing, she tried to stop him. She disappeared shortly after." Adana's throat went dry. "So Amara, she's..." Amaka nodded solemnly. "Nena's daughter." Silence. It was like the room itself was holding its breath. She watched her mother suffer. She watched Emma build his empire on lies and betrayal. She was there when Nena vanished. Cynthia gasped. "Wait, you mean, Amara is back for revenge?" Adana whispered. Amaka looked at Adana with piercing eyes. "And you, Adana, you're not just another woman he wanted. He needed you. You come from power too. He wanted your name, your family. But he didn't count on love getting in the way." Adana looked confused. "Love? You loved him, didn't you?" Amaka asked softly. Adana bit her lip, tears forming. "I did. I believed in him. I trusted him. I gave up everything for him." Amaka stepped forward and held Adana's hand. "Then help us bring him down. For your sake. For Nena. For every woman he's ever used." Meanwhile, Emma sat in his glass-walled office, overlooking the city he once ruled. The empire was crumbling and he knew it. Investors had started pulling out. The media had been relentless. And Kelechi, that snake, had become a household name. He slammed his fist against the desk. But the rage did nothing to fix what had already begun. His assistant walked in. "Sir, the private investigator returned. He says the girl Amara is real. Her mother was Nena, your wife. And she never died." Emma's face went pale. "She's alive." "No. She passed away recently. But not before telling her daughter everything." Emma closed his eyes. The ghosts he buried had returned. And they were angry. Back at the beach house, Adana stared out the window. Her fingers curled around a mug of tea, her mind racing. Everything was shifting beneath her feet. Her identity, her purpose, her strength. And deep down, a storm had begun to rise in her heart. "I'm done running," she said finally. Cynthia looked up from her seat. "What do you mean?" Adana turned to face her, her eyes fierce. "Emma built a kingdom on lies, and I helped him do it. It's time I take it apart. Brick by brick. Cynthia exhaled. You're really going to war with him? No, Adana whispered. I'm ending him. The next morning, Lagos buzzed with its usual rhythm. Cars honking, radios blaring, and the distant hum of generators battling the city's unstable power grid. But within the concrete walls of a small cafe in Victoria Island, something very unusual was happening. Adana sat at the back corner booth, wearing dark shades and a black hoodie, her face partially concealed. Across from her was Kelechi, looking rougher than usual. Unkempt beard, wrinkled shirt, and eyes that held stories too heavy to tell. I didn't think you'd come, he said quietly. Adana's fingers curled around her coffee cup. I didn't come for you. I came for the truth. Kelechi chuckled bitterly. The truth will break you, Adana. She looked at him sharply. It already has. Now I want revenge. There was a pause. A moment heavy with unspoken memories. The love they once shared. The betrayal that destroyed it. The madness of the wedding day. I have files, Kelechi finally said. Recordings. Bank documents. Contracts with foreign companies. Dirty deals. All linked to Emma. Adana's eyes didn't blink. I want everything. Kelechi slid a flash drive across the table. You're playing with fire, he warned. Adana gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Good, because fire is the only way to purify this mess. That night, Adana returned to the beach house with the drive in hand. Cynthia was already there, pacing. Where have you been? She snapped. Preparing, Adana replied calmly. It's time to go public. Cynthia stopped pacing. What? You want to expose him? Not just expose him, Adana said. I want to humiliate him. I want to show the world who Chief Emma really is. But that could get you killed. Adana's voice was low, steely. I've already died once. That wedding was my funeral. What's left now is resurrection. Meanwhile, in his mansion, Chief Emma sat on his grand leather chair, sipping whiskey as thunder rolled outside. His house was quiet, too quiet. His phone rang. Unknown number. He picked it up. Hello. A distorted voice came through. Check the news, Chief. He frowned. Who is this? But the line went dead. He grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news station. There she was. Emma. Bold. Glowing. Alive. What you're about to see may shock you, the reporter said. Former fiancé of Chief Emma, Adana Abaka, has released sensitive evidence that may lead to an EFCC investigation against one of the most powerful men in Lagos. Emma's glass slipped from his fingers and shattered. On the screen, Adana's voice was calm and sharp as a knife. I was once in love with a man I believed was my future. What I didn't know was that he was building his empire on blood, manipulation, and betrayal. But the truth has come out, and the time of reckoning is here. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #ExposeEmma and #JusticeForNenna trended for hours. EFCC launched a formal investigation. Sponsors pulled their contracts. Shareholders panicked. And for the first time in years, Chief Emma had nowhere to run. But he wasn't finished. Not yet. 3 days later, Adana was walking along a quiet beach path when a black SUV pulled up beside her. She barely had time to react. 2 masked men jumped out, grabbed her, and shoved her into the car before anyone nearby could scream. She woke up in a dark, damp warehouse, tied to a chair, her mouth taped shut. Footsteps echoed. Then a shadow appeared. Emma. But this wasn't the charming, powerful Chief Lagos knew. His face was sunken, his eyes wild, his clothes disheveled. He walked toward her slowly, almost like a wounded animal. You should have stayed gone, he muttered. Adana's eyes burned with fury. You don't understand what you've done. You've ruined everything. My name, my legacy. You want justice? There is no justice in this world. Adana. Only power. He yanked the tape from her mouth. You're sick, she spat. Emma grinned, almost amused. Sick? No, I'm a survivor. You should have been my queen. We could have ruled together. I'd rather burn than sit beside you. He stepped back, anger flaring in his eyes. Then burn, Adana. Just then, the sound of sirens echoed outside. Emma froze. A voice boomed from a megaphone. This is the EFCC. You're surrounded. Step out with your hands where we can see them. Adana smiled. You think I didn't prepare? She whispered. The door burst open. Agents swarmed in. Emma tried to run only to be tackled to the ground. Adana was untied within seconds. As she was escorted out, blinking under the bright floodlights, a reporter caught sight of her. Miss Adana, any words? She looked into the camera, her voice firm and fierce. You can't bury the truth. It always finds the light. It had been 3 weeks since Chief Emma was dragged away in handcuffs. His scandal rocked the city to its core. Politicians distanced themselves, his businesses crumbled, and his so-called allies vanished into thin air. Adana, on the other hand, was rising. She stepped into a new phase of her life, no longer the broken bride but a woman who stood tall after being shattered. Her interview went viral. Her courage inspired women across Nigeria, and even NGOs reached out, offering her a platform. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. She stood one evening at her mother's grave, placing fresh roses. Mama, I did it. I exposed him. I'm free now. A familiar voice spoke behind her. And I'm proud of you. She turned. Kelechi. He stepped closer. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you then, but I'll always stand beside you now. If you'll let me. Adana looked at him, eyes softening. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Maybe love wasn't lost, just delayed. 6 months later, Adana launched her foundation, the Phoenix Project, dedicated to helping women escape toxic relationships, rebuild, and reclaim their power. She gave speeches, mentored girls in schools, and turned her pain into purpose. Chief Emma remained in custody, awaiting trial, his empire gone, his name a stain, and Kletchi, he stayed by her side not as a savior but as a partner. One evening, as the sun set over the Lekki Bridge, Kelechi took her hand. You changed the narrative, he said. Adana looked at the horizon. No, I became the narrative. And I won't stop now. They walked into the dusk together, free, fearless, and full of fire. What did you think about this powerful ending? Do you believe Adana made the right choices? Should she give Kelechi another chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Boss fam, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping story. Another emotional roller coaster is coming your way. Stay tuned.